Intro. Right. Let's get started with the what throughput accounting. When it comes to throughput accounting, throughput contribution has to be maximized. Throughput contribution has to be what? Maximized. How to calculate the throughput contribution? Sales minus what? Direct material cost. Sales minus what? Direct material cost. You remember the story why this concept being introduced in the modern business environment. Most of the companies are shifting from the labor centered manufacturing to what? Machine centered manufacturing. In other words, most of the labor force are paid on the basis of what? Fixed. Therefore, in the modern business context, we do find out only the what? Super variable cost. Super variable cost, that is what is known as direct material. Direct material. Then we will calculate the what throughput contribution. And if you look at the traditional costing system, we do focus on the what contribution. And the traditional costing system, we call it as what limiting factor. Under throughput accounting, we call it as what bottleneck, resources or what process. It can be anything. It can be a process or what resources. Third one, we do rank the product based on the traditional costing system, contribution per limiting factor. Under modern business technique, throughput accounting, throughput contributions per bottleneck resources. Bottleneck resources. Same thing, only the what terminology what got changed. So are they getting late? Others. We are going to discuss very important 3 ratios, throughput accounting ratios. Can you share the QR code quickly to the what the people who are joining through online? Can you all share quickly? Just to mark the attendance. Emily, you'll be getting the WhatsApp message. Can be done no through WhatsApp message. Excuse me. My first questions. You tell me, without knowing the limiting factor, is it possible for you to understand the throughput accounting? You tell me the people are coming from the what without having a basic background with regard to the management accounting. Can you all understand the throughput accounting without having a prior knowledge with regard to the what basic limiting factor? That's the reason. But if the syllabus order, it's not there. Right? That's the reason I have taught you all first what basic limiting factor, short-term decision making. Right? Now let's get started with the throughput accounting ratio. There is a chance of getting 1 OTQ questions, but it will be tested sometime but section B or C. That's of course I have already told you, very difficult to do a prediction for section C and B. But one questions I remember most often they test you through the throughput accounting ratio. 1 questions were in the section A, but very easy. Very easy. It's not a what complicated area. If you understand what I am explaining over here with regard to the ratio, you would be able to tackle any type of a question under sections A, throughput accounting. Throughput accounting ratio, there are three ratios that are we going to calculate. One is return per factory hour. First ratio, return per factory hour. Another name for this, some books, but this is the way I do write, I do explain, I do call it as what, return, right? But some books, they have given throughput contribution per factory hour. Throughput contribution per factory hour. Excuse me, don't memorize. Do you remember? I have explained to you all throughput contribution per bottleneck resources. Throughput contribution. Yeah, forget about everything. How to calculate contribution per limiting factor? Contribution per limiting factor. We rank the product. Do you remember traditional costing system? We rank the product based on what? Contribution per limiting factor. How did we calculate? Contribution divided by contribution divided by contribution divided by, that is what is known as this return per factory. But return per factory, instead of using the contribution, we applied what? Throughput contribution. Contribution per unit divided by what? Bottleneck. But there we call it as what? Limiting factor. Here we call it as what? Bottleneck resources. But all formulae being given where in my study text, study material, right? Study material. Sometime it would have been copied from where? Hub, ACC Hub. They may use the what? Slightly different wording, right? Don't get confused with the wording. That's why I've given both, right? Bottleneck, resources for the product. Resources for the product. Or bottleneck resources. No problem. Is that clear? First one. First one is, if you want to understand in your own language, in pencil, right? Pencil you just mark contribution per limiting factor. Very, very important. What mark is what? Contribution per limiting factor. Layman's language. Second ratio, cost per factory hour. Cost per factory hour. Right. If you look at throughput accounting, listen very carefully. If you look at throughput accounting, we said what there's only what super variable cost. What is the super variable cost? Only material is what? Super variable cost. Apart from material, all the other cost is what? Factory cost. Apart from material, all the other costs, labor, variable overhead, that thing, the overhead, this overhead, everything. Apart from material, everything is what? Factory cost. How to calculate cost per factory hour? Total factory cost divided by total bottleneck resources. Total factory cost divided by what? Total bottleneck resources. Is that understandable? Is that clear? Now we are moving to very important ratio, last ratio, TA ratio, throughput accounting ratio. TA ratio. Very good. What is meant by TA ratio? Return divided by what? Cost. What is meant by return? Throughput contributions. Am I correct? Therefore, how to calculate return? What do you call throughput account in TA ratio? First ratio divided by what? Second ratio, which means return per factory R, return, or rather writing return, we call it as what? Throughput contribution per factory R. Throughput contribution per factory, factory R divided by cost per factory R. If you want in the bracket with mark, ratio number 1 divided by ratio number 2. Ratio number 1 divided by ratio number 2. Very simple. First one divided by second. Excuse me. Now I'm going to explain to you a small interpretation with regard to the TA ratio. Listen very carefully, because we'll have to analyze this part as a management accounting perspective, not only from the what topics perspective. I'll tell you everything. I have initially taught you the traditional method of what limiting factor. And just before I have taught you modern business what? Dealing with the what? Throughput accounting. Sometimes these two techniques which would give you the two different answers. Do you remember? We ranked the product based on what? Contribution per limiting factor. We said what? A is most lucrative product. First A. Second we said what? B. Same question. Listen very carefully. Same question. If you try to come up with the what? Throughput accounting, it may give you the other way around. The B was first, A what? Second. It may give you. Now you will ask the question from me, what is the best system? Tell me what is the best system. No, you can't say throughput accounting is what best system. What you have to do is, you'll have to go back and you'll have to check on your company how your labor forces are treated. If your labor forces are treated on the basis of what fixed, then you can come up with a throughput accounting. If your labors are treated as a what variable, then you should go back to the what traditional costing system. It does not mean one is wrong, another one is correct. Both are correct. It will be applied for two different situations. You got my point? We will be learning everything in some time. What I am telling you here, we have learned two techniques, two systems. One is a traditional system, another one is what? Throughput accounting, modern business system. Sometime it may give you the two contradict answer. Then you will raise the question yourself, what is the best system? Both are best system. How to implement that one based on the what? Nature of the what? Business. Based on the what? Nature of the business. How your labor forces are treated in your company. Are you clear? Are you clear? That's the summary of what traditional and the throughput. Now let's discuss this part bit detail. This ratio. Let's say it's visible, no? The formula, right? Let's say throughput contribution is what? $10. Throughput contribution is what? We'll be doing the question. I'm just putting some fictitious numbers over here for the time being. Bottleneck resources, 2 hours. 2 hours. Then return per factory hours is what? $5 per hour. Do you agree with me? Is that understandable? Every 1 hour, your throughput contribution is how much? $5. Now you calculated second one, total factory cost. Let's say $10,000. $10,000. Total bottleneck resources. Let's say 5,000. Yeah, 5,000 hours. Sorry, 4,000 hours. 4,000 hours. Now, what is the factory cost per? Sorry, factory cost per. Sorry, what do you call for that? Cost per factory hour. Cost per factory hour. How much? $2.5 for every 1 hour. Right. It's very clear now. Every 1 hour, your throughput contribution is $5. Agree with me? Every 1 hour, your factory cost is how much? 2.5. Which means, apart from the material, all the other costs which would have been treated as about factory costs were in your company. Now let's calculate the what TA ratio. TA ratio. Throughput contribution per factory hours is what? $5, correct? And cost per factory hours is what? $2.5 per hour. Here also what? Per hour. That would give you what? $2. Do you agree with me? TA ratio is what? $2. Now what is the decision criteria? Just have a look. If the TA ratio is more than 1, if the TA ratio is what? What is meant by more than 1? You just interpret me. What is meant by more than 1? No, yeah, that's correct. How that is possible? How that is possible? More than 1 means how that is possible? Whether cost is more than the contribution or contribution is more than the cost. Then the product is viable, the product will be continued. You all agree with me? If the TA ratio is what? Less than 1, then the what? Factory cost is more than what? Throughput contribution. Ultimately give you the what? Loss. Therefore, the product will be what? Discontinued. Is that understandable? So let's put some figures, then you will understand further. Let's say factory cost is what? $10. Throughput contribution per scarce resource is how much? $10. Cost per factory is what? $20. Then how much? $0.5 per hour. TA ratio says what? Every $1 of what your throughput contribution, right? Your factory cost is what? 2. 10 over 20, no? Your factory cost is what? 2. Or if you want to put it in the correct way, your throughput contribution is less than what? Your factory cost. Do you agree with me? Your throughput contribution is what? Less than what? Factory cost. That's the reason it gave you what? 0.5. It gave you what? 0.5. Then the product will be what? Discontinued, revisited. That is the decision criteria based on what? TA ratio. Clear? Right. Now I'm going to ask you the small questions. Let's say there are 2 products where in your company. Product A and the product B. They have given the TA ratio. Product A, the TA ratio is 1.9. TA ratio is what? 1.9. Product B TA ratio is 0.9. Let me know the what decision criteria. What do we do? A will be accepted, continue. B will be discontinued. That is correct only when in the short run. based on the what throughput accounting approach. But as an overall business perspective, listen very carefully. Overall business perspective, as a management accountant, both product will be continued because what is meant by overhead? It will remain constant. Through the product A, you have recovered entire overhead. It is not compulsory to recover the overhead through the what product B. Since the product B is giving you the positive contribution, both product can be what continued. As long as if it is what not negative. Agree with me. You don't need to calculate what individually what TA ratio. Am I correct? If out of the whole product, if one product is giving you what more than one TA ratio, all the other product, even though if it is less than one, it can be continued. That is the overall management accounting perspective. Listen very carefully. But in your level, in your exam, we are going to take the decision based on only with our TA ratio. TA ratio. If any TA ratio is giving you more than one, product will be continued. If anything is giving you less than one, product will be what? That's the final decision. Are you clear? If you want to further investigate with regard to the what TA ratio, you can come up with that particular point as well. I hope you understood what I'm trying to say about that the factory cost. Factory cost only for once. Since you have recovered that factory cost through the what product A, it is not compulsory to recover what through the what product B. That is already you got what more than one. All the factory cost is what recovered through the what product A. Since the product B is giving you the positive throughput contribution, you can continue that product as well. But your level under throughput accounting, any TA ratio is giving you what more than one, the product will be continue. Less than one, product will be what discontinue. Are you clear? Are you clear? Right? Okay. Before we get started with some question, I'm going to explain to you. Let's say product B, it goes through two processes. It goes through what? Two processes, right? One is a process one. Another one is process two. Right? To get the final output, that product should pass what these two processes. When it comes to process one, product will require 1.5 hours. The product B will require 1.5 hours. When it comes to process 2, product will require 2 hours. Right? Available process 1 hours. Available process 1. Let's say you have 45,000 hours. Right? Here you have 50,000 hours. Are you clear with the questions? A product which goes through what? Two department, two processes. First, it has to come to what? Process one. When you are doing something in the process one, it will require how many hours? 1.5 hours. Then it will pass it to what? Process two. When it comes to process two, that product will require how many hours? 2 hours. For that process, available is how many hours? 50,000 hours. Are you clear with the questions? My requirement, what is the bottleneck process here out of these two? Demands are unlimited where in the market. What is meant by unlimited where in the market? Any numbers that can be sold out where in the market. Any numbers that can be sold out where in the market. Now, out a very, very simple question that I put. I'm not telling you to do this one, right? I will explain everything, no worries. I'm just asking from you before I put on the board. I'm asking from you, what is the process that you think is a bottleneck process? Process 1 or process 2? Process 1. 2. Why? But anyway, there should be only one answer. It should be either what process 1 or process 2. But I need evidence. Why do we say process 1 or process 2? Just think bit.
It's the bottleneck.
Yeah, that is my requirement. What is the bottleneck process? Process which would become a bottleneck if there is a shortfall of what? Resources. Agree with me? Then I said what? Market demand is what? Unlimited. Which means what? Any number that can be sold out where in the market. Any numbers that can be sold out where in the market. One answer I got from Uma, process 2. He says process 2. Uma, any reasons?
Because during the allocation of hours, prefer to allocate the first as higher hours and the
No, it's not mandatory, no. It's not compulsory, no.
50,000 is more, 50,000 be the first is. That would have been
No, then I will give it to you some other way around then. We'll make it the process 1 as a what 50,000 and what 2 hours. Process 2 as a what 45,000 and 1.5. Come up with a little what strong answer.
maybe they are taking more hours to
Because
produce
I know that you are thinking within the boundary. Still you are in the boundary. If you go beyond the boundary, I'm sure that you would be able to get the correct answer.
42 takes more hours for production, so labor cost increase.
Right, okay. Just have a look. Just have a look. Excuse me. Now you tell me, when it comes to process 1, how many units you can make? 45,000 divided by 1.5 hours, you can make 30,000 units. Agree with me? Based on the available resources where in the process 1, you can make 30,000 units. Agree with me? When it comes to process 2, 50,000 hours, each unit will require 2 hours. Therefore, you can make 25,000 units. As far as the company is concerned, ultimately, company, how many units that they can produce? Can they go for 30,000 units? Can they go for 30,000 units? How possible? Because process 2 says what? Maximum you can what? Get from me 25,000 units. Process 2 says what? But if you are going to go with the 30,000, you are happy. Why? You can increase your production. You can increase what? Your profit. But to do that, process 2 says what? No. Available resources is only what? 50,000. When this product comes to what? My process, it will take about 2 hours. My process, which would give the output of only how much? 25,000 units. What is the process which is giving you the lowest output? What is the process which is blocking what your production process? Process 2, then that is the limiting factor. Is that understandable? Different angle the examiner will test you. Are you all with me first? Is that understandable? What I have explained, this is not what I have asked from you. But what we did with the basic question, identify the limiting factor. How to identify the limiting factor? How much is needed? How much is available? How much is needed? He also will be continuing with the same base question. How much is needed? How much is available? If there is a shortfall, which is known as what? Limiting factor. That's very clear. But here, only one product. Then they say market demand is what? Unlimited. Any numbers that can be sold out where in the market. But that product should pass through the what? Two processes, the two departments. Process 1 and the process 2. Yes, Uma, you are correct. Right? But when it comes to process 1, it gives you, do you remember the bottleneck? Do you remember the bottleneck? If I would have had what 60,000 units, where in the process what 2, you could have produced what? You could have produced what? 30,000. Then it won't become a neck of the bottle. Now the process 2 has become a what? Neck of the bottle due to the what? Shortfall resources. The process which would become a bottleneck due to the what? Lack of what? Resources. Lack of means what? Bottleneck resources. Are you clear? Are you clear? Right now, in my study material, I have already, they have shared to you through the WhatsApp. Am I correct? There's a one question under throughput accounting. Just take page number, please. Page number. Are you okay? No question being uploaded behind your LMS. Nothing. Yeah, everything. Take the snapshot of the questions behind it. Take this. You will be getting the question through the WhatsApp. After that, we'll move on to the past paper questions. Don't do the question number 2. Just try question number 1. Very straightforward, 2 marks questions. Very straightforward. Then I will explain to you. I don't need to start because already I have explained. Question number 1. Question number 2, I will explain to you. Question number 1. Did you say? Right. Shall we try? X Limited manufactures a product that requires how many hours? 1.5 hours. How many hours which is needed? 1.5 hours of machining. Machine time is a bottleneck resources. They have given clearly beyond the question itself. Machine time is what? Bottleneck. We don't need to find out what is the bottleneck. It's given. Due to the limited number of machines available, there are 10 machines available and each machine can be used for how many hours per week? 40 hours per week. Therefore, total available machine hours how much? Total available machine hours how much? 10 times what? 40. 400 hours. Correct? Is that clear? Then they have given the bottleneck what? Bottleneck hours for each unit 1.5 hours per unit. The product is sold $85. Selling price is how much? $85. And the direct material cost per unit 42.5. Direct material cost 42.5. Total factory cost 8,000. Total factory cost 8,000. Excuse me, there are two parts of the requirement. What is the first part of the requirement? Return per factory R. What is the second part? Throughput. TPAR stand for what? Throughput accounting ratio. Simple abbreviation is what? TA ratio. TA ratio. Excuse me, if the examiner has only one requirement, what is that? TA ratio. You are supposed to calculate what? All three ratios. Without having a first two, you can't calculate the what? TA ratio. Let's quickly calculate. First one is what? Return per factory R. Return per factory R. Throughput contribution. So how to calculate throughput contribution? $42.5 as what? Throughput contribution. Agree with me? How to calculate? 85 minus what? 42.5. That would give you what? 42.5 is our throughput contribution. Now we found the throughput contribution 42.5 divided by what? Bottleneck resources per unit. What is the bottleneck resources per unit? 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours. Then what is the return per factory hour? How much? 42.5 divided by 1.5. Sorry? 28.33 dollars per hour. Correct? Second part of the requirement is what? Factory cost per hour. Factory cost per hour equal total factory cost, which is given as how much? 8,000 divided by what? Total bottleneck resources. Total bottleneck resources. We found the total bottleneck resources, which is how much? 400 hours. Am I correct? Some other student, what they try to do is in the exam, they try to put the 40 hours. If you put the 40 hours, you are wrong. If the question says what? There are 10 machines. Every machine, you can get the usage of what? 40 hours. Therefore, altogether, available resources are how much? 400 hours. Now, what is the factory cost per hour? Yeah, each week. Because the whole information being provided for a week. All information being provided for a week. Right? Therefore, $20 per hour. Am I correct? $20 per hour. Final requirement is what? Calculate TA ratio. TA ratio. That is very simple. Return per factory hour, which is how much? 28.33 divided by factory cost per hour, which is how much? 20. That would give you how much? TA ratio is more than 1. The product will be continued because throughput contribution is more than 1 factory cost. Please make a note on that. Product will be continued. Product will be continued since the product has 1.4 TA ratio. 1.4 TA ratio. In other words, throughput contribution is more than what? Factory cost. Throughput contribution is more than factory cost. Yeah. Product will be continued since product has TA ratio of 1.4. 1.4. Which is within the bracket, which is more than 1. Which is more than 1. Which is more than 1. Then you can continue. In other words, product throughput contribution is more than what? Factory cost. More than factory cost. You have to go with the same wording, right? As long as if you are coming up with the same point, more than enough. Shall we try now question number 2? Excuse me. Question number 2 is much more, excuse me. I'm not going to explain now. I will give you the time to do it yourself. Then I will put on the board because same type of a question I have explained under limiting factor. Only one difference. What is the difference? There we calculated what contribution. Here we are going to calculate what? Throughput contribution. There we calculated what contribution per limiting factor. Here we are going to calculate what? Throughput contribution per what? Bottleneck resource. Can you all try the second question, please? Online. I'll tell you how to start. Look at the question. Just in time manufacture 4 product A, B, C and D. Details of the sales price, cost and resource requirement for each product are as follows. They have given the selling price, they have given the material cost and they have given the labor cost. Right? Since we are doing this part under throughput accounting, we'll have to calculate the what? Throughput contribution. How to calculate throughput contribution? Sales minus direct material cost. Then they have given machine times per unit is 5 minutes, here 2 minutes, here 3 minutes, here 6 minutes. Look at the question. They have given the requirement in terms of what? Minutes, not in hour. Therefore, everything you will have to convert it into what? Minutes. Otherwise, you will get confused. All available resources also should have been converted into what? Minutes. They have given the labor time per unit. Once again, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes and what? 5 minutes respectively for A to what? B, C and D. And they have given the weekly sales demand. A 2000 units, B 2000 units, C 2500 units and product D 1500 units. Look at the question what they say. Machine time is a bottleneck resources. It's given. We don't need to identify what is the limiting factor. Once again, same 5 steps. Identify the limiting factor. Do you remember that? Identify the limiting factor. But here, identify the what? Bottleneck resources. If you want, please, can you take down the steps quickly? Under throughput accounting, take down the steps. Steps in throughput accounting. First one, identify the bottleneck resources. Identify the bottleneck resources. Identify the bottleneck resources. Second step, calculate throughput contribution per bottleneck resource. Throughput contribution per bottleneck resource. Right? Third step, rank the product based on throughput contribution per bottleneck resource. Right? Fourth step, develop the maximum production plan. Do you remember that? Optimum or optimal. Develop the maximum production plan. Finally, calculate the profit for the maximum production plan. So it's very straightforward. First of all, what you have to do is you have to identify the what? Bottleneck, but that is given where in the questions. Am I correct? It's given what? Machine time is a bottleneck resources. Maximum capacity is, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, how many hours? Since the requirement is given in terms of minutes, better convert it to everything into what? Minutes. Or convert everything into what? Hours. Either way it can be done, no problem. Right? We will try to do with the what? Minutes, it's easy. Because if we are converting into hours, what? We are going to deal with the what? 3-4 decimal places. Because it says what? 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Then, 60, 1 over 60. Am I correct? Therefore, we will try to convert everything into what? Minutes. Therefore, 400 hours machine means what? How many minutes? 400 times what? 60, which is how much? 2400 minutes. Available is what? 2400 minutes. Operating cost including the direct labor cost R 5000 what 440. That is also given us. What is the what total operating cost? Direct labor cost are $12 per hour, and the direct labors workers are paid 30. But that is not relevant for us since they have given the total operating cost. Since they have given the total operating cost, we don't work with the what labor cost separately. Labor is what one of the operating costs. Labor is what one of the operating costs. Can you start to work the same way what you did for a single limiting factor, but only one condition. Here the contribution is what? Throughput contribution. Go ahead. Don't tell me that I didn't explain any basic questions. Same basic is already I have explained for the basic limiting factor. You got late. Umar, can you try? Don't get me wrong that I'm not going to read everyone where in the list. It's a long list. There are almost 18 to 20 people. Akshita, can you? Emily? you want, you can calculate, but TA ratio, you're talking about TA ratio, no? TA ratio is not a requirement, no? The requirement is what determine the quantity of each product, that should be what maximum production plan. Maximum production plan. The second one is overall what TA ratio. Through the maximum production plan, you'll be finding the total contribution. Through that, you can find out the total contribution divided by total available total net resources. Understand what I said?
Contribution. Well, the first sum shouldn't include labor cost. No, something.
You can't include the labor costs.
You can't include the labor.
But you are making fundamental mistakes. No, this is throughput accounting. How can we take the labor costs? What is the throughput accounting conditions? Only the direct material is. But when I was, you know the problem. When I was explaining that part, you were talking. That was the biggest issue. But you are making a fundamental mistake, because under throughput accounting, what is the main conditions? Main condition is what? Only the super variable cost, that is what? Direct material. Then we do, focus on what? Throughput contribution. How to calculate throughput contribution? Selling price minus only the what? Direct material cost. Anybody who have got the answers here online?
No, but in the previous sum, what did we do, sir?
Which sum?
We did say step one identifying limiting for the 1,000.
That is the traditional method. That is the traditional method of what limiting factor. You got late in the morning, no? I have explained first the traditional method of approach. What is the traditional method? We will rank the product based on what? Contribution per limiting factor. Now we are not doing the traditional method. Now we are doing the throughput accounting. Under throughput accounting, only the material cost is a what? Super variable.
We asked TPR means it's remove this one.
Yeah. 320. What is that? Profit. Let me know the production plan, please. Production plan. Anybody who have found the answers? One answer that I have got from Sanjana, she says what? 9,780. She says 9,780. Yeah, 5,400 hours. No, 400 hours. Just take 440 hours. Five thousand one hundred forty. What fabric cost? Yeah, yeah. From that, if you subtract 5,000, then you can get the profit. You can get the profit. That's correct. That's correct. That will give you 300 or something. 300. Yeah. Correct. Perfect. Perfect answers. 320. Super. Excellent. Perfect answer. Please just try to attempt the questions that this way. Then you can rectify your mistakes. Where you went wrong. Sanjana, that's wrong. The profit is 320. One of your student friend who have found the answer. Visual 5. A, B, C. Selling prices. A, B. Yes.
Either I know what I know. 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes divided by 6.
The hour is the hours. Then I have the hours.
Why, once again, why did you put the label? No, I didn't ask you to do on the traditional thing. That must be the that is a traditional we discussed yesterday. That's the reason we are getting the wrong answer. Yeah. Yeah. Examine. Then subtract the direct. Divided by total length, then you can rank based on that figures. Do you want time? Shall I get started? Shall we? 2 minutes. Right, shall we try? Let's quickly follow the step. Follow the steps. What is the first step? Identify the bottleneck resources. But anyway, the questions being provided as a what? Machine hours as a bottleneck resources. Therefore, first step, identify bottleneck resource. That is how much? 400 hours. 400 hours, no? Yeah, that is what machine hours. 400 hours times what? 60 minutes. 2400 minutes. But you don't need write 2400 minutes and all, because the first step is what? Identify the bottleneck. Yes. 24,000. Sorry, 24,000 minutes. 24,000 minutes. It's not relevant. It's not relevant. First step is what? Identify the what? Bottleneck. Since the question is being provided, machine time is a bottleneck. So machine is a what? Machine hours is what? Bottleneck. What is the second step? We need to calculate throughput contribution per bottleneck resources. That's very simple. Second step. Second step. There are three products. What are they? A, B, C, D. Correct? A, B, C, D. Four product. Selling price. How much for A? 1.4. 2.8. Okay. 1.2. 2.8. This is the selling price. In order to calculate the throughput contribution, we need to subtract only the what? Direct material, which is the what? Super variable cost. Right? We don't use the what? Traditional costing system. We are coming up with the what? Modern business technique. We are supposed to subtract direct material. How much here for A? 0.8. 86. 3. Okay. 0. Last one. 1. 1. If we say 1 point, I will start to continue after point. 1. Let's get the what? Contribution, throughput contribution. Please clearly state it as what? Just not contribution. It should have been what? Called as throughput contribution. Throughput contribution. Here 0.8. Here 0.5. Here 0.6. This is 1.8. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? What is this next part? Throughput contributions per bottleneck resource. Bottleneck resource also given. Throughput contribution per bottleneck resources. $0.8 divided by how many minutes? Sorry? 5 minutes. 0.5 divided by how many minutes? 2 minutes. 0.6 divided by 3 minutes. 1.8 divided by 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Now get me the what throughput contribution per minute. Per minute. $0.16 per minute. $0.25 per minute. $0.2 per minute. Last one. Per minute. Now let's rank the product. Let's rank the product. What is most lucrative product? D. Donkey. Second. B. Ball. Boy. Third. C. Cat. Fourth one is what? Apple. Right. Now we rank the product. Those who made mistakes, quickly photocopy what is on the screen. Those who made mistakes. Umar. Okay. Sanjana. What about Umar? Have you got the answer? Karishma, have you got the answer? Don't get me wrong that I'm not reading your all name. Over in the top, I do. Thank you, Karishma. Karishma, what's the answer? Final answer. Profit of the company. Right. Let's go to the what? Step number 4. develop maximum production plan. Maximum production plan that is developed from the what available resources. From the what available resources. You tell me what is the available resources total machine hours? Machine hours 2000. Sorry, 24,000 minutes. 24,000 minutes. Out of 24,000 minutes available, we found what is the most lucrative product? D. What is the market demand for D? 1,500 units. Each unit will require how many minutes? 6 minutes. Therefore, 9,000 minutes we will take to make what product D. Agree with me? What is the second profitable product? B. What is the market demand? 2,000. Each unit will require how many minutes? 2 minutes. Therefore, 4,000 minutes we will take to produce what? Product B. Correct? What is the next one? Excuse me, whenever you do this question in the exam, you have to double check whether that's matching or not here. Then only you can continue. If you are completing the available resources only with the 2 products, then you can't do what? Other 2 products. You have to stop only with the what? 2 products. Got my point. So now, see, what is the market demand? 2,500 units. Each unit will require how many minutes? 3 minutes. Then 7,500 minutes. Out of 24,000 minutes, we have taken 9,000, 4,000, 7,500 minutes respectively for D, B and C. What is the remaining resources now? Only the 3,500 can be given for product A, which is needed. No. How many minutes? 5 minutes. Therefore, we can make only 700 units. But what is the market demand for A? 2,000. But end of the day, we are going to make only 700 units since we don't have about sufficient resources. Is that understandable? Quickly photocopy. Excuse me. Let me know JIT system. Is it a push system or pull system? I'm not asking what is the system that you prefer. I'm talking about what is the JIT system. Only 2 system. Push. Pull system. What is meant by push system? You do produce. No. Idea is this. What is exactly meant by push system? We do produce a product. We will force the customer to what? Buy the product. Then we are pushing them to what? Buy our product. That's we call it as what? Push system. But JIT coming from what? Pull system. Because already customer who placed the order, right? For that their order, you are what? Producing the product and what? You are delivering the product. That is what full system. But very important, don't forget, if you come across the total quality management, the main part of the total quality management is what? Get it right first time. Get it right, but first time. It should be about continuous improvement. You should have a what? Continuous improvement. But I don't want to place finger on more on that because we don't have in detail. We have those two areas just to start the what? Throughput accounting. Because throughput accounting coming from what? These two techniques. After introducing the JIT and the TQ. Now let's calculate the what? Profit. Yeah. Previous slides. Visible? Shall I enlarge? Where you went wrong? Everything got messed up. Right. Last one is we are going to calculate the profit. We are going to calculate the what? Profit. How to calculate profit? Total throughput contribution divided by, minus what? Operating cost. Now product A, we are going to sell only what? 700 units, no? 700 units. Each unit, what is our throughput contribution? $0.8 per unit. Then that would give you how much? $560. Then the product B, how many units? Each unit, what is our contribution? 0.5, that was 1000. Correct? Third product C, how many units? What is our contribution? Throughput contribution. Then how much? 1500. D, how many units? 1.8. That would give you how much? $2,700. This is the total throughput contribution incorporating all four products. Agree with me? Total throughput contribution. Contribution. 5760 minus what? Operating cost. Operating cost. All the other expenses apart from the material is what? Factory or operating cost, which is how much? 5,000. Then the company's profit is what? 306. Sorry. Are you all okay, girls? What about you? Where you went wrong?
Change the ranking.
Okay.
Everything was in this one, but the ranking was.
Sometime, but I never came across that type of a questions where in ACCA paper, but CMA, they will give you one common numbers. The requirement is what? Find out the traditional approach and the what? Throughput account. Sometimes it may give you the what? Contradict. Not may, it will give the what? Contradict answers. The ranking and also what will get changed. So that's the reason I have explained to you what is the correct. Both are correct. We will adapt based on the what? Conditions or nature of the business. Now second part of the requirement, we have to calculate the what? Throughput accounting ratio. TA ratio, we can calculate all four products individually if you want. How? Return per factory, cost divided by what? Cost per factory R. Likewise, one by one, each product can be calculated and you can give the advice which product will be continue, which product will be what? Discontinue. Or you have another option, you can calculate the TA ratio for whole company TA ratio, not for the product. How to calculate for the whole company? TA ratio equal return for factory cost divided by what? Cost per factory hour. So how to calculate return per factory hours? What is the total return we have generated incorporating all the products? How much? 5,760. Then $5,760 divided by what? Number of available hours. What is the available hours? 400 hours. Then what is the return per factory hour? 14.4. $14.4 per hour. Or here $14.4 per hour divided by cost per factory hour. How to calculate cost per factory hour? What is the cost? 5,440 divided by 400 machine hours. That would give you how much? 13.6. Now divided by 13.6. Then what is the TA ratio? 1.058. More than 1. Then the total product will be what? Continue. But what I would advise, this is the answer which has been given via in the examiner's answer. But my idea is the TA ratio should have been calculated individually for what? Each product. Then only you can decide which product will be continue, which is what? Discontinue. Then you may ask the question from me, what is the cost per factory hour? Cost per factory hour is how much? 13.6. That is applicable for what? Each product. Each product that is applicable. But then you have to convert everything into minutes. Because since we have calculated return per factory hours in minutes now, therefore here total factory cost also what? In minutes. 5,760 divided by 24,000 minutes. 24,000 minutes. That is the best way of calculating TA ratio. But this is what they have given via in your scheme, marking scheme. But I don't agree with this one. I want to go with bit detail of calculating TA ratio individually for each product. That would be giving the a better picture than what calculating for as a whole for company. Because from this company TA ratio, is it possible for you to take a decision with regard to the TA ratio which will be continue and discontinue? No. That's why I'm advising you to calculate what? Individual TA ratio. Oh, for an example, only one product I will calculate. Product A TA ratio. Only this is the what for the total company, no? Right? Product A TA ratio. Return per factory. Already we calculated. Product A how much? Which was? We ranked based on that only. How much? 0.16. 0.16. No. Return per factory hour is in the questions. That is product A is what? 0.16. Yes, correct. 0.16. 0.16 dollars per minute. Correct. Next, factory cost per minute. That is 5,440. 440. 24,000. The total number of available minutes 400 hours, no? 400 times 60, 24,000 minutes. How can you find out the factory cost for the particular product? Only for the factory cost for the total company. It never been calculated for what? Individual product. It never been what? Calculated for individual product, because the fixed overhead will remain what? Constant. It is identified what? In total. That is what we discussed in the first class. Fixed overhead is always identified what? In total. It cannot be calculated under any circumstances but product basis. You got my point. One common factory cost is what? Applicable for what? Whole product. Those are very, very basic things. Don't move away from that. You know why? That's the very, very important what area where in the management accounting. Factory costs will remain constant. It does not change. Since that is constant, you can calculate for the company, not for the product. Not for the product, right? Therefore, factory cost is here how many minutes? 24,000 minutes. Therefore, how much? 5,400 divided by 24,000 minutes. I have told you, no, one is what answer is matching. That's not a problem because it should, yeah, it's not a problem, right? Let's calculate for A. We'll check, right? How much? 5,440 divided by 24,000 minutes. 0.226 per minute. Am I correct? Now for the product A TA ratio would be 0.16 divided by 0.226. Am I correct? How much? 706 less than 1. The product will be discontinued. Product will be what? Discontinued. It's giving you what? Less than 1. Any TA, that is the summary, what we have learned. Any product which is giving you more than 1 TA, but this is not a requirement. This is not a requirement. I'm just explaining you. I'm explaining to you in case if the examiner asks you to calculate the TA ratio for individual product one by one, you have to calculate. And you have to check what is the most profitable product. Not profitable. What is the product which would be continued and what would be discontinued. How you all have calculated factory cost? How you all have calculated? 5,440 divided by 4. Then divided into 4. Okay. 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 Factory cost cannot be done that way. Factory cost is always constant. It's common for the company, not for the product. It's for the what company, it's not for the product. That is always calculated on the base of what total. It's never be calculated for what individual products. Correct? Always we should calculate. Don't forget, we should calculate factory costs per hour only for one per company. You can't calculate individual factory costs. Then it should be a different company because in one company you are having but 4 products. So that particular company is having a what? Factory cost. Those are very, very important things that you should remember. Don't mess up with that part, right? So if you want to explain, if I want to explain further, if you want to calculate for product B, let me know the product B. Product B, what is the return per factory hour? 0.25. Then you have already calculated factory 0.225 something, correct? 226. 0.226. Then what is the TA ratio? 0.25 divided by 0.226. That would give you how much? 1 point. Yeah, no problem. Then this is more than 1. This product will be continued. This is the way of calculating TA ratio for what? All the products individually. That factory cost per hour is common for what? All the products. Any questions? Shall I come over there? Are you all okay? Shall I come? Sure. Shall we do past paper questions now? Uh, what do you do the past paper questions? Past paper questions. Shall we get started? Tomorrow you're not having class. Again, I'll be taking your class from 21st onwards. Shall I give that question? Can you do it as a home or else shall we come and discuss in the class itself? What do you do? Shall I give the question now? Shall I? Okay. Excuse me. I'm sure this question is very tough. Excuse me. What has been uploaded via in your WhatsApp? Question is very tough. But they have provided only 10 marks. If I'm the examiner, I could have given that as about 20 marks questions. Should have been given as about 20 marks question because it's very difficult for you to finish that question in 10 minutes. Desperately, it's needed with about 20 to 25 minutes time. Because you know the reason, I'm not looking this question as a what lecturer's perspective. Looking the student's perspective. For the student's perspective, I would say what this should have been given as about 20 marks, not as a what 10 marks question. But what to do? They have given as a what 10 marks. We'll have to what go with the what their requirement. Right. I want to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to see you all again, but after 1 week almost. Am I correct? That's also the class will be starting on Tuesday. Any doubts? Any specific doubts that you have? Please let me know. I can clarify quickly and we can go home after that. Any specific doubt anyone who is having from the online students? Are you having any doubts? Please put them forward. I can quickly clarify your doubts. Do you have any doubts? Are you all okay with throughput accounting? Throughput accounting? Same steps to be followed. Same steps to be followed what you did in the traditional costing. But the terminology will get differ. And instead of calculating what contribution, here we do calculate what throughput contribution. Throughput contribution. Right, there's a question. There's a question. what if the total available minutes is insufficient at product B? Yes, it may happen. End of the day, you can produce only one product. Product what? D only. Sanjana, are you with me? In case if you do not have what sufficient times to produce what even a second product, you can't produce the product. You can produce only what one type of a product at the end. You don't have a sufficient resources to produce what rest of the product. You'll have to what give up all the other products. Or excuse me, in the short run, you should live with a constraint. You should live with a constraint in the short run. But at the same time, in the long run, all these constraints should have been but eliminated. All these because you can't keep on doing the business with always what constraint. Do you agree with me? If there is a shortfall of machine time, you'll have to hire a new machine next time. If you try to keep on doing the business with the always what shortfall resources, you can't maximize the what profit. You got my point. You can't maximize the what profit. Therefore, in the short run, you should live with the constraint. But in the long run, all the constraints should have been what eliminated. Should have been what eliminated. Sanjana, are you okay? Any other questions from the class, physical students? I got only one questions from what online. Come on. I can clarify. You have a time 5-10 minutes. Why don't you use that time?
We don't put this up.
Sorry? We don't do? If you want to do it in the class, we can do it. No problem. You do me a small favor. Even though if you are unable to attempt the questions, but at home, no problem. Please try to, excuse me. Please try to read the question thoroughly and come up with what questions or the idea to the class. At least read the question thoroughly. Right? What is exactly what they are doing? What is their operations? They are making the product in the form of batches. Then the available time also given what? Number of minutes, the requirement, everything for a what? Batch. In a batch, they are making what? Different quantities. The different what? Daily demand and different what? Minimum demand and the what? Maximum demand. Both demands are given. So you should know what is meant by minimum demand, what is meant by what? Maximum demand. Therefore, read the question thoroughly and come for the classes. Shall we call it a day? Okay. Thank you very much. Hope you all enjoy. See you what? Next class on 21st of what? January. Right? That will be on what? Tuesday. I'm sure that you are not having any questions online. Thank you very much.